Hey, what's going on people, it's Alex and welcome to part 2 of how I create my videos. Today I'm going to be talking about editing and uploading onto YouTube. If you haven't seen the first episode of how I film my videos and the equipment that I use, then go and check that one out now. There are so many video editing softwares out there. iMovie, Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro, Filmora, Movavi, KineMaster, Cyberlink Power Director. The software that I use is Davinci Resolve, and in this video I'm going to show you some simple editing tips that you should be able to replicate in your chosen video editing software. Show you my editing workflow, how I edit my A and B roll. I'll show you cuts and transitions that I use. Tips when editing to make your video more engaging. Where I get my music and how I use sound effects to enhance the video. Talk about color correction and also how to render and upload your video onto YouTube. Give this video a like if you find it useful and subscribe if you're new here. Now let's get into the editing software. Okay, so here we are on the computer, just loading up Davinci Resolve, which is the video editing software that I use for all of my videos. Now it's worth mentioning that if you're using a laptop or a computer, PC, desktop, that you have the right specifications. So it's important to note that you probably need quite a lot of random access memory, which is RAM in short. And I suggest that you have at least 16 gigabytes if you want to successfully run your video editing software, because they are quite strenuous on the computer. So looking at my timeline settings, I've got 1080p timeline with a 24 frames per second because that keeps it nice and cinematic. And I'm going to import all of my footage. So I'll go into my folder structure, find my footage. Now when I have my footage in my folders, I like to organize it into A and B roll. A roll is the shots of your presenter or yourself talking to the camera, and B roll is the shots that you have that set the scene. Now they call them A roll and B roll because back in the day they used to use big rolls of film, and one would be for the scene setting shots, the B roll, and one would be for the actual characters speaking, that would be the A roll. The B roll shots kind of set the scene and add more of an atmosphere on to the video or the movie. So I get my A roll and B roll all imported and I'm ready to put things onto my timeline. So I do this by selecting the out and in points of the footage, and I like to do this before I get it on the timeline so I can keep my timeline relatively clean. After I've added the first piece of footage onto the timeline, I like to go and turn the resolution of the preview window down to maybe half resolution, because that just makes it more smooth in the video editing software, which means that I don't drop any frames when I'm watching the video back. And I also change the output blanking, which is the black bars on the top and bottom of the screen. So now I'm going to go through all of the other clips, A and B roll, and just edit them into my timeline. This is what I call the rough cut. So I'm not looking at getting things absolutely perfect. This is where I'm thinking about the story of the video, the flow of the video, having a significant start, middle, and an end as well. I'll do a little bit of cutting out of places where I'm either breathing or thinking, or there's not much going on, and I'll take that little bit out, and there we have it, our rough cut is done. Next, I like to add my subscribe and Instagram overlays to try and remind people to subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram to keep updated throughout the week. So if you guys haven't done that, then pop down to the description, you'll see my Instagram link, and then hit that red button to subscribe as well. But I like to put that as an overlay on my videos too. So once those are done, and if you want to know how to put those on, there's loads of YouTube videos with tutorials of how to do that. I like to get my sound next and my music. So I use a website called Epidemic Sound, which is you do get a 30-day free trial, but after that it's $9.99 a month, but it's completely uncopyrighted music that you have the license for, so you don't have to worry about getting copyright strikes on your channel. It's a great website. It has different genres, different moods that you can look through, and it also has sound effects. So I'm looking for something that's about 2 minutes 40 long at around 80 beats per minute, because I don't want it too fast, but I don't want it too slow. So the genre I've selected is future bass, which I know on this website is quite an upbeat but also a relaxed feel to it as well. I'm going to add a couple of moods onto there, hopeful and restless, and I've found the perfect song for my start of my video, the intro that we are editing today. So this one looks good, so I'm going to download it, and the great thing about Epidemic Sound is that you can download all of the stems of music. So you can download the whole track, you can download the instrumental to it, you can do the bass, the drums, and this makes it easier when you're editing to the beat. So I like to put the full audio track into one of my audio tracks at the bottom, and I also put one of the stems in as well. I think I started off by putting bass in, but I changed it to drums because it was just a little bit easier to see the drum hits. And you'll see the blue things on the screen there, that are my markers, and that's going to be where I am putting my cuts. I like to normalize the audio levels of the sound as well, just to make sure that on the bottom right hand side none of my bars are going up into the red area. They are slightly for my vocals but not for the music, which is good for me because I don't want the audio clipping, is the technical term for it, which means it gets that fuzzy, distorted sound when it goes too loud. And then I'll just go through the video adding markers in as to where the beats are, and I'll do some editing to the beat. So when you edit to the beat, it just makes it a lot more engaging for the viewer. It makes you feel like it's more of a flow to the video and everything is all moving kind of all in unison. There's harmony in your video. So I like to edit to the beat just to keep the viewer more enthralled, more engaged with the video. So if you don't do that, I definitely suggest that you edit to the music when you make YouTube videos. It just adds another dimension, another layer of professionalism and cinematography to your videos. So once I've finished doing the editing to the music, I like to look through and watch the whole video just to make sure that there's anything I want to change. I can make some small adjustments. You can also obviously make changes later on in your editing process as well. If you don't have music or you don't want to pay for a monthly music service, then you can find it on YouTube. Just type in no copyright music. You may have to follow them on Spotify, SoundCloud or something like that first, but it does help if you don't want to pay for your music, which is totally understandable. So once I've got the music and a rough cut of the video all sorted, I move on to transitions and some technical bits. So this transition is a swipe transition. Most of this work is done within the camera when you film. So at the end of my first clip, I'll swipe the camera to the right, and at the start of the second clip, I'll swipe it from the left to the right hand side. And I've added a cross dissolve in there just to make it a little bit smoother as well. And another similar sort of transition here. I'm going to do a moving from left to right. I'm going to try and merge these two clips together. So I'm going to do what's called a masking transition. These are quite technical to do, and it took me loads and loads of times to practice to try and get this right in the videos that I've done before. But as you can see in the finished project here, it does create a very nice and smooth, seamless transition from one scene into another if you can get it right, and there's loads of tutorials on YouTube that you can find. Next thing in terms of transitions I try and do is get a few L and J cuts. Now the L and the J cut is basically referring to the shape on your timeline. So for instance here, I like to have the audio track starting a little bit before the video track comes in. It just gives more of a seamless transition and merges your scenes together. Your A and your B roll can kind of merge together a little bit more. So while here you've got the video of the lighthouse there, and my voice will start talking and then my face will come onto the screen, and this just is a little bit more of an easier transition into different clips. Now with the clock footage here, I'm putting it over a load of jump cuts. Jump cuts are cuts within the same scene that has the same background. So the background will stay the same, but my face and my mouth, everything there will kind of move around, and there was just too many jump cuts there, as you can see on video track number 1. So I've popped this clock in above it, and I'm doing some modifications to it using some rotation, some keyframes to move it around a little bit, just to make it a little bit more interesting rather than just a static clock sitting there. So I'll rotate it 90 degrees one way, 90 degrees the other way, just to give a little bit more movement to my video. Another really simple transition is the crossfade. I don't like to use crossfades too much, as personally I feel that they're a little bit boring. They're good if you're doing a very slow video, but I don't like to overuse them. So only a couple of times in this introduction to this video have I used them. And now we'll move on to slow motion. So this slow motion clip was filmed on my GoPro. So the GoPro has a great ability to be able to shoot in 240 frames a second, which means that we can drop it down to 10% speed when we are in our editing software, and it will be smooth. You won't drop any frames at all. If you want to do slow motion, you could probably get away with it doing 60 frames a second, but you'd only be able to slow the video down halfway, because 60 frames, half of that is 30, and you're working off of a 24 frame timeline. So it's good to get as many frames per second as you possibly can. And then here I like to just curve out the in and the out of the slow motion. So this software is brilliant, which gives you a nice easy way to smoothly enter your slow-mo and smoothly come out of it so that it's not jolty. Now this shot of the swing through the window is a lovely shot, but it's a little bit boring. There's no movement in it whatsoever. So I am going to go into the modifying area, and I'm going to move it all the way to the left, zoom it in a little bit to cut out the background, and I'll add a keyframe at the start of the footage and a keyframe at the end, and I would have moved the footage over to the right hand side. So when this plays through, it will slowly go from left over to the right hand side, which just gives a little bit extra into your footage. There's loads of tutorials on YouTube that you can find to do this, which breaks it down a little bit more than I have here. Now I'll stabilize my images. A couple of them will need stabilizing, not all of them, and to do this I just go over to the modifying area and modify that footage. With the stabilization, you can change the strength and the smoothness and how much it crops it out, because when you stabilize it will zoom into your footage just a little bit, and it will kind of, within the feature of the video editing software, it will stabilize the edges, which will stabilize the center a lot more. Now we're moving on to sound effects. So I have a small sound effects library already on my computer, which I'm currently building up, and I'm going to get a few of the sound effects that I know I want to use into my timeline. I'm also going to use Epidemic sound, look for some sound effects on there as well. You can see there's loads of different categories that you can choose from. Also there's a search function too. So I need some sort of whoosh sound, so a blade swing for when I have my mask and my swipe transition. Also we're thinking about a sound effect for the lighthouse as well, but I just thought of a homing beacon instead, because I couldn't get anything good for a lighthouse, which kind of gives it that nautical kind of vibe, and I think that fit quite well at the end of the video, quietly in the background. For my clock over my jump cuts, I've just got a simple ticking clock. For the basketball spinning round in slow motion, I couldn't really decide what to do, so I thought I'd just find your general slow motion sound and just put that on the back of that very quietly in the background, just to add a little bit of atmosphere onto that shot. Now once I've got them all imported into my project, it's time to put them into the timeline. It's important to make sure that they're not too loud and that they're overpowering. You need to make sure that they are at a good level for the viewer to listen to when they come up in the video. It needs to be seamless, almost as if you didn't even realize that that sound effect was there. So I'm adding in a light buzz there for the light turning on at the start of the video. I'm going to put my blade swing in the middle of the swipe transition here as well. For the clock, I'm going to stick my ticking clock in. Do a little bit of an L and a J cut on this one, just so that the clock starts ticking before you actually see it, and you can hear it after when you see my face on the screen as well. And then we've got our swing. Although the swing was rope and plastic, I've put a little metal sound onto it. A lot of the times some sound effects may not be at all related to what you're actually trying to produce a sound effect for. You just have to get a little bit creative. So I'm going to put all of these in here, copy and paste them in, create a compound clip to add them all together so I can change the volume of them, give them a little fade in and out. So that just gives a more rounded look at those swings there. And of course for the water, we're going to have some sort of water trickling sound. Water going down a stream, which is just at the back of the garden. I didn't pick up anything on my microphone because it was actually very quiet back there, but sticking a sound effect in from Epidemic Sounds is always something that I try and do. And then I put my homing beacon underneath my lighthouse, stretching across the two clips, and a little bit of an L and a J cut there just to extend the audio over the actual visual track. So we're almost there with the audio. The last thing I need to do is normalize the audio levels for my A-roll. So my voice is quite loud and quite harsh at the moment, so I'll just select all of the clips that I want to edit, right click, and then go normalize audio levels, and that just brings them down to the same level that they're not going over a certain amount of decibels at any time. So I've set it to 9 decibels. So at any point, any time that my voice goes over 9 decibels, it should cut it out there and stop it from going any higher, so that I'm not making any nasty distorting noises. And the last thing I do with my audio is bring the volume where I'm doing the talking to the camera on my A-roll. I just want to bring that level of music down so that you all can hear me. Simple as that. I'm holding Alt on my keyboard and then just clicking and making some markers and bringing it down to about -21 decibels. This means that you can nicely hear what I'm saying, and I ramp it down slowly and then ramp it back up when the B-roll comes in. And I'll do this a few more times throughout the video. A bit of a monotonous process, but it's something that obviously has to be done if you want yourself to be heard. You want to put your message or story across, so you want to make sure that you're heard. So this is something that sometimes people can get a bit wrong, making their volume too loud so that you can't hear what's going on when you're actually speaking, which is obviously not going to be very good for your video. And lastly, we'll look at color correction and rendering. So with color correction today, I'm going to add an adjustment clip onto the whole of my video, which means that I'm going to make a change to that adjustment clip, and that's going to change every single video track in my timeline. So I'm going to go over to the color tab in Davinci Resolve. You can play around with the color wheels at the bottom. As you can see there, it's making it a little bit more blue, green, red, depends on the warmth of the type of footage that you want to do. So you can look up and you can do some courses online of how to color correct. Today, just to make it easy, I've used a LUT, which is a lookup table, which is basically a kind of preset color correction for any type of video. There's loads of them on this software, and you can download them or buy them online as well. So I'm just going to drag that over to my adjustment clip so that now the whole video is now color corrected, just to give a little bit of a deeper color into the greens and the blues and the different colors of nature, just to make them stand out. And then lastly, I have to render. So I'm going to go to the export page of my video editing software, Davinci Resolve, put in where I want the video to be saved to. So I'm going to save it into part 2 of how I make my videos, give it a title so I know what I'm looking for. When I export it, I export into MP4 and always 4K. Not all of my footage here is 4K, but I like to upload all 4K videos anyway. Just checking that the audio is being exported as well. It just has a message there that my timeline is different to my render settings, which I know because I set a 1080p timeline and I'm rendering out in 4K. And then we hit render and then it will pop up in your folder once it is finished. And that is the video complete. So that is my complete process of how I edited the start of this video. It was only a 2.5 minute clip or little introduction, but you can see how much work goes into it. And now we're going to look at uploading and making sure that your video looks good on YouTube. So once you're onto YouTube, click the upload video button and search for the file that you want to upload. First thing you need to do is create a title. So make something that's catchy but also explains the video that you are uploading as well. In the description box, I like to have the title in the description as well. This means that YouTube can tell exactly what video you are trying to put onto YouTube, what kind of theme it has, what topics you're talking about. And to have the same words in the title, the description and the tags is a great way to get on the search engine when people are searching on YouTube. Next, I'm putting in a link to another video, so part 1 of how I make my videos, just in case people haven't seen it, and it incentivizes them to go and click on that one as well, just to drive more traffic to my channel. And then I've got my Instagram and Facebook links as well. Next, I've got the photo editor Pixlr to make my thumbnail. So the thumbnail is something that is a picture that the viewer will see before they click on the video. So make something that is quite eye-catching, explains what the video is doing and what you're talking about, and like I say, make it nice and eye-catching, something that's relevant to the video. So I've chosen a background screen grab of my editing software, and then bright letters in the middle tells you exactly what the video is. So I don't have Photoshop or anything like that, so I use this free online tool Pixlr, which is really good. Next, we're on to the tags. So I mentioned that I try and get the title of the video in the tags, and just as many things, as many topics as I can possibly think of that people may search, that I'm hoping to get my video ranked in their search. So as many as you could possibly think of to put in your tags. You can have 500 characters, and I suggest very strongly that you try and use every single character, because the more options or the more chance of someone coming to your video just drives more traffic to your channel, and your videos are going to do better and better. Once the video is almost ready to go, you can select whether you want it private, unlisted or public. Normally you'd go public. Obviously this video is going to be private because it's just for demonstrating. And the next and last thing that I like to do is add an end screen. So you can add a video, a subscribe button, you can add a channel, you can add a playlist onto this as well, and it just comes up at the end of your video. Now a lot of people don't use these, which is silly, because it's just an easy way to promote your videos at the end of your video, and YouTube lets you do that. Another thing is the cards. You'll see here I've put a card to another video, the part 1 of this video, so that halfway through or towards the end of the part 2, then they'll get a little card to direct them towards my previous video. So using cards to direct people to your videos is a great thing to do as well. And on the right hand side of the screen there is something that I use. It's a software that you can kind of add on to YouTube called TubeBuddy, and it's a great way for you to get some tips and tricks on how to get better search engine optimization, which is SEO. And I've talked about tutorials about editing and filming throughout this 2-part series, but search engine optimization is a great thing to look up and get a better knowledge on. So if you've made it this far in the video, I want to say thank you very much for sticking along with me. I know it's not the outdoor video that I try and normally get up on my channel, but I thought that a lot of people may benefit from this from the YouTube community. So thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, leave us a like, and if you have any tips or tricks of your own or any feedback on this video, please do drop a comment in the comment section below as well. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and stay tuned for more videos next week.